Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me thank the organizer and TCS for inviting me. I know CJK is very focused on their regional development. So it is an honor for me to be here to talk about ASEAN. Let me just tell you a bit about ASEAN before I dwell into some of the specific issues concerning the essence of cooperation at the regional level. ASEAN was founded in 1967, and this is basically a map of the region and the key milestones in ASEAN. The point to note is that it took us more than 40 years from 1967 to the year 2008 when we developed the ASEAN Charter and incorporated it into our institutional documents. So for 40 years, more than 40 years, ASEAN operated on just 3 pieces of paper called the Bangkok Declaration. Today, ASEAN is focused on community building. Our agenda is up there, the milestone 2016 to 2025. We hope that we are able to establish the ASEAN community based on political, economic, and social development and cooperation by the year 2025. Many people ask, what has ASEAN done to take us to this level of cooperation? Basically, we can say it is the ASEAN way. We do things slowly in an evolutionary manner. We move step by step at a pace comfortable to all. So we have 10 countries in ASEAN. Even the smallest country in ASEAN, Brunei, with 350,000 population, can make it impossible for the cooperation to proceed. But what happened is that we have to take into account the interests of every member states, and even the smallest member states has a voice and has a role in shaping policy in ASEAN. So we take it step by step at a pace comfortable to all. And our major consideration is not to interfere in the member countries' internal affairs. That is why the last bullet there on the slide, so no interference in one domestic matters. But in recent years, what is interesting in ASEAN is that the individual countries in ASEAN, which has certain specific controversies or challenges, they will raise some of these domestic issues at the ASEAN summit and to discuss with the other ASEAN leaders on how to resolve some of these challenging internal problems. So although we do not, as a matter of principle, interfere in another country's domestic affairs, if a member state raises some of the internal problems and challenges, all the ASEAN leaders will come together and discuss these problems. So through the last 50 years, this year is the 50th anniversary of ASEAN as an organization. We treasure our experience. Our experience is based on dialogue, exchange. That's why we have so many meetings. I don't know about CJK, but in the case of ASEAN, we have more than 1,200 meetings a year, from the very, very small level working group to the summit. So if you are going into your CGK development, you have to prepare for more than 1,000 meetings a year. It is very process-driven. Because we have 1,000 over meetings, every decision making has to take into account what was decided the year before or the last meeting. So we are always mindful of what we do every meeting. We bear in mind that whatever we say, whatever we decide in one meeting will be used by future meetings as a decision made by the previous gathering. We base our decision making and other activities on what we call rules and norms. So we are very devoted to the rules-based regime. The simple reason is that if we don't have the rules, then 10 countries will always be divided, because every one of us will say we follow this rule or follow that procedure, and then it will be very complicated. So we have always emphasized a rules-based regime. And lastly, we have to follow through. Everything that we decided must be followed through. If we cannot make a decision or cannot implement some of this, we will have to take it up in the following meeting or sometime in the future to further discuss it. So today, in ASEAN, we have these mechanisms. I think people in China, Japan and Korea are familiar with all these mechanisms: ASEAN Regional Forum, East Asia Summit. ADMM stands for ASEAN Defense Minister Meeting, and now we have the ASEAN Defense Minister Plus, which include CJK in our annual discussion. ASEAN Plus 3 means ASEAN plus China, Japan, Korea. ASEAN Plus 1, individually, we have ASEAN plus China or ASEAN plus Japan and ASEAN plus Republic of Korea meetings. So, Mr. Chairman, what I want to put forward is that in the case of ASEAN, we have to take the world as it is. We cannot make tremendous impact which affect the global development and agenda. So in this age of uncertainty, as our preceding speakers have put out, ASEAN will have to look at the developments and try to make the best of what has happened in the global stage for our ASEAN interests. But we believe that at the end of the day, the essence of cooperation at the regional level is really leadership. The leaders of the 10 ASEAN countries have come together very often to put their personal and national interests one side so that we have the regional interests. The regional interests in some cases are very important, and from time to time, we in ASEAN have our own internal division differences, but we usually will conclude with the decision to work together as a regional grouping. So leadership matters, and I think going forward, ASEAN's focus is on multilateralism and keeping Southeast Asia open to everybody interested in working with us. By making ASEAN open and multilateral, we believe we can have a very peaceful and stable situation, and this will encourage business people to invest in our region and therefore make ASEAN very attractive. A peaceful ASEAN, a peaceful Southeast Asia will be for the benefit of CJK. Thank you very much.